welcome to the Ruden Report podcast. I'm Dave Ruden, and we're all football again because there's more than enough to talk about with some interesting storylines, places I never thought I would be in the seventh week of the season. And we're now ready the jockeys are ready to go to the home stretch now. They got the whips out, and it's the race for state playoff berths. And joining me again, as always, is Sean Ireland. Sean, how you doing?
Good, Dave. How are you? You just hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of FCX teams that I think they control their own destiny. If they do what they need to do, they're going to qualify. They might not be in the top 8 right now, but if they win out, or a couple of things go their way, they're right back in it. So,
I agree. I was thinking about this. I was at the diner having breakfast before driving to Boyle Stadium yesterday, and it's the seventh week of the season. I'm on my way to Stamford High School to cover a football game. The night before, I had Jeff Jacobs at Fairfield, Ludlowe, McMahon. So I'm covering those 3 teams in the seventh week of the season. That to me has been the biggest storyline of this year. It's been a pretty boring season, I have to admit, for a variety of reasons. It's kind of been by the book, few surprises. But the fact that we have have these teams that usually are not in state playoff contention, to me, that's the storyline. I thought it was great that I was covering those 3 schools this late into the season.
yeah, and as we mentioned last week with Coach Morello, like we're always happy when the league does well. And the big boys, the Greenwiches, New Canaan, Staples, Darien, that's going to happen. But like when you get the Stamfords, the Ludlows, the McMahons, it just makes the league so much better. And it's just it's exciting. It's exciting. Let's see what these guys can do.
I was looking at just league records, take Alliance games out of the equation, and right now there are only 3 teams in the FCAC with 4 or more wins, and those are the 3 teams in the top 10 that are all 5-0 in the league: Greenwich, New Canaan, and Staples. There are 5 teams that have either 0 or 1 loss in league play, and then there are 8 teams with 2 or 3. So
Yeah.
it's a big middle class this year.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the way, and I think we're going to get to it later, the way things pan out, we have a couple teams with 3 losses right now that, man, they can still, I mean, even Trumbull, I think if Trumbull wins out, they might get into that 8 seed, because right now you got a couple 3 and 4 records, 3 and like, I think what I see, Glastonbury's 3 and 4, and they're ranked 6 in the double L.
Double L's double. I mean, to be fair, and I mean, Stamford's 7th and McMahon's 9th this year, and double L is really down.
Yeah.
But you know what? Stamford and McMahon are playing the schedules that they have, and they're winning the games, and they don't care. Well, how double L is this year. They just care.
Yeah.
Are we putting the equipment away after Thanksgiving or not?
Right. Exactly.
That's all they care about.
That's always the goal, to extend your season's always the goal. So, if all you got to do is get in, okay. And if you get in, you achieve your goal. So
the thing that's really changed this year, that's tilted the way we look at things, is normally St. Joseph and Darien are top 10 type teams, are right on the periphery of that. And they're upper middle class teams this year. They're not elite teams. Yesterday, if you told me I was going to be at Stamford Trumbull instead of Greenwich McMahon, Greenwich St. Joseph, and we're not going to talk about that game really, but credit to St. Joe's has been playing everybody tough, even though they've been injured and they're starting a freshman quarterback. But 23-9 against the number 1 team in the state is really respectable. And Darien is going to be a 6 or 7 win team this year. They're a nice solid team, but they're not at the level that Darien usually is. And because of that, you have the wider middle class, and that's really kind of been what's been the big difference, is having 3 elite teams instead of the usual 5.
Yeah, Yeah, that is true. That is true.
And sometimes six, you know, you get a Ridgefield or Trumbull that sometimes is playing at that elite level too.
Right, right. You throw in the Ridgefields, this is just it's not a typical year for Ridgefield, and everybody would tell you that. Ridgefield is a quality, not a team, a quality program, high quality program. What Kev does up there is phenomenal. But yeah, you get the top teams, and some of those top teams are not having the years that they're used to. But they're still right in the thick of it. They're right there. Like you said, St. Joe's, losing 23-9. And they had a chance. They had a couple chances, to put some points on the board. So St. Joe's, if they win out, I think they get in.
Joe always, whatever, Joe always is going to get the most out. Joe's teams are never going to underachieve.
Exactly. So yeah, you take those normal top 5 teams in the state. They're not there this year, but their down years, a lot of good years for other schools. I can tell you that.
Well, why don't we, since we're talking about what the main storyline is, being these, the new kids on the block, if you whatever we want to call them.
Yep.
Darien Wilton was the highest profile game coming in, and let's talk about that after. Let's start with Stamford Trumbull, which I was there yesterday. It was nice to be wearing shorts and not rain gear for a change on a Saturday. And Stamford winning 34-14, not a surprise to me. And I had a lot of other coaches said Stanford's going to win the game.
Yeah.
Maybe the margin of victory was a slight surprise, but yes, Stanford's got game breakers, and they have speed on defense. And as we've seen, the key to beating Trumbull has been stopping Rowan Johnston, and Greenwich did it last week, and Stanford contained him yesterday, and other than 2 drives, really shut him down.
Yeah. If you go back to the tapes from week 1, I've been on Stanford's bandwagon since preseason, because I really think this Presley kid, I can't speak enough about him. I was 1 week off on my, not that I'm saying that this was an upset, but I was 1 week off, with my Stanford pick. But the thing is, I was following that game. I didn't see it live, but I was following it. And I know, Trumbull off the bat, 10+ play drive, 80 yards, 7 minutes. And when you go on one of those drives, you're like, okay, this is good. We're going to impose our will on them. And then they return a kickoff for a touchdown. And it is, I'm not going to use the word demoralizing, but it is letting up a special teams touchdown is the worst. You have all the momentum in the world. You got them on their heels. You're running the ball. You're doing what you need to do. And then you blink your eye and the kid's running the kickoff back. And then after that, it's just different. It's just different. But back to the Presley, he's unbelievable. I think he had 3 or 4 touchdowns, a couple running, one or 2 throwing, something like that. Pierre had a great game. We don't talk about him enough.
No,
that kid's good.
Jean-Pierre, yeah, Cameron.
Yeah.
They got 3 or 4 guys who can take it. EJ can do it. Cord can do it. And you mentioned, and I asked Donnie about this. I thought it was the most underrated play of the game was Elijah Harris's kickoff return. Trumbull eats up 7.5 minutes and goes on that 80-yard drive and just kind of wears you down.
Yeah.
And you're saying, "No, man, this is just going to be, this can be a long day for Stanford's defense." And then boom, 20 seconds later, it's a tie game because Harris, who Donnie said is a really fast junior, whose only reason he's not playing as much right now is he's a junior and he has seniors ahead of him.
Right.
But I agree with you that Trumbull never got to play with a lead for a while and kind of assert itself.
Yeah. And again, it's just it's awesome. I'm just so happy for Stanford right now. And I think they're going to be in the spotlight for a while now going forward.
what really struck me, and it was cool yesterday at Boyle. I mean, Boyle #1, just being there is great. But it's a upper 70-degree day. You've got it's homecoming. It's the school. The school does, and I don't single out a lot of fundraisers because if you talk about one, you have to
You got
talk
to talk
about
about them all,
every.
right?
And to league's credit, every team is doing something, which is great. But Stamford does, excuse me, one of the bigger ones, and they raised $13,000 for the Bennett Center for a cancer drive, breast cancer awareness,
Oh, that's great.
so I mean they do that. It's just a spectacular day, and then they beat Trumbull for the first time in 9 years. And I'm looking at the clock, and I got my camera out ready to get all the players celebrating. And it's like, boom, okay, we won. And, it didn't look like any other win. And the players run and, go over to the student section, thank them. And then it's, let's go hear Donnie's post-game words. You would have thought that this is a team that was #1 in the state and is just used to winning.
Yeah, yeah. And that's credit to that Donnie and the entire staff, that they see the big picture. They see the big picture. If Stanford was 2-5 in the same outcome, maybe you see a different celebration. But Donnie has those kids focused. They know what the end goal is. The end goal is not to beat Trumbull. That's a step to get to the end goal. But yeah, so that's good job on their part.
They expected to win. That's
Yeah.
Donnie said, no disrespect towards Trumbull. They just expected to win. And I talked to EJ, I talked to Brien Augustine, who played a great game on defense. And they said the same thing. Why weren't you guys celebrating at the end? We expected to win.
Yeah.
And they have a chance to win out. They're they play Ridgefield, which
That's the one.
they play Ridgefield, they play Danbury, and they play West Hill.
Yeah.
They could run the table, and I don't know if running the table how high it'll get them, and one game at a time for Stanford.
Yep.
But I have a feeling I'm gonna make sure I have to have a writer to cover them on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, if I'm available, I'll go up and watch the game. I don't know if you want me writing. There'll be a lot of red squiggly lines,
If you
misspelled
can
words.
write, I'll take you.
Yeah.
You don't charge too much.
Yeah.
But they held, and I didn't count he had a few catches for not ultra significant yards, but Rowan Johnston, they held them #1. They held them to 125 yards, so that's a good day in itself.
Yep.
103 yards came on the first drive of the game and the first drive after halftime.
Yeah.
The first drive of the game, he ends up scoring a touchdown. The first drive of the second half, they get stopped on the 5-yard line on 4th down. So outside of those two drives, they held them to 22 yards.
Yeah.
That's a big part of the story right there. Trumbull falls behind. They have to pass, and Trumbull's better playing with a lead than they're not really equipped to come from behind with what their strengths are.
Yeah. And like we said last week, and Coach Morello, agree with it. Trumbull's very good, but you got to key one person. And when you can make a team one-dimensional, you're okay. The teams that are very, very successful, you have, a good running back and all right, we stop him. Well, this guy's open. Unfortunately, Trumbull really does not have that right now. So I'm sure the game plan was to take out Johnson, and, it's crazy when a kid has 125 yards, 130 yards, and you're like, man, they did a good job, but they really did do a good job containing him. But Johnson is that good. That's the thing. He is that good.
And then we're talking about teams I don't usually cover. And this was I said Ludlow's the team. If you're just a general fan and you want to just go see and be entertained, you go to Ludlowe football games, because you're going to see a lot of points. And Friday night, McMahon takes a lead in a back and forth game with 2.5 minutes to go. And then Ludlow's backup quarterback, Grant Stupak, who was playing because Chris Bellantoni was injured, throws a 21-yard touchdown pass with 36 seconds left in the game to Ryan Manazzi, and the Falcons win a wild 35-32 game, and they're 5-2 and sitting in 10th place in a very, very difficult L division.
Yeah.
And McMahon is 4-3, and they're 9th right now. They're knocking at the door.
Yeah, that was that's a classic Mitch Ross game. Like no lead is safe with him. I could vouch for that 2 years in a row. I was following that game too. So when I saw McMahon, I think they scored with like 2.5, 3 minutes to go in the game. I was like, oh, this is not over. I'm telling you right now, this is not over. Yeah, again, that's one of those barn burners. Like if you were at the game, that's a memorable game to watch. Two very good teams, and whoever had the ball last won the game pretty much.
Yeah, I was on the sidelines at Darien and had Twitter open, and was obviously was again. I'm paying attention to Ludlowe McMahon on the 7th week of the season. It's fun. I like when I'm covering different teams, and I'm just happy when the league's doing well, but when you get to give everybody, I've covered more teams this year probably than I ever have, because I'm not just going to watch the same 5 teams playing each other each
Right.
week. I didn't cover Wilton for the first half of the season, and now I've seen him 3 weeks in a row, and I'm probably going to see him 4 weeks in a row when we get to next week's games. But
that's going to be a big one too. But back to that game real quick.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the last drive, in which they should, but I'm almost positive Ludlowe converted on a 4th and goal from the 21-yard line. If that's true, and again, I'm just basing on what I saw on Twitter and that stuff, that's a backbreaker. That's the one. Like I immediately thought of when McMahon played Darien. I'm like, that was the same thing happened. So that they're going to talk about the last drive, but man, that play, I'd like to see a clip of that and see how it unfolded. But those are the plays that win you the games.
Yeah, I remember going to Ludlowe on my preseason tour, and at that point, Mitch hadn't decided on a quarterback between Bellantoni and Stupak, and he said they were pretty even. And it's kind of nice when your quarterback gets injured and you can come in and have somebody almost as talented, close to as talented. You don't have to change the playbook around much, but because of limitations, it's still Air Ross. And they basically didn't miss a beat this week, and they're not getting many bonus points, which is why they're sitting in the 10th spot right now. But they're another team that has a chance to have success these last few weeks and get themselves in the state playoffs.
Yeah, I have Ludlowe. I think they have to win out just because based on
bonus points.
Yeah. Wilton will, if they, I mean, if they beat Wilton, that's going to give them a ton of points, but I have them 3-0 and 2-1 is a coin
I forgot who do they play this week?
Norwalk.
Okay.
They play Norwalk, yeah.
Okay. So they're going to be favored against Norwalk. They're going to be favored against Ward. You're right. I think the Wilton game, they beat Wilton, they're probably in, and they lose and they're probably out. And man, that would be tough to go 7-3 and not get in.
Oh, that's football's crazy, Dave. Football's crazy.
We're looking at Trumbull at 3-4, and again, all these divisions are different right now. If Ludlowe is in double L, they may be talking about trying to play for a home game or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like I said, to me, this is just really, really fun that I'm most likely gonna be watching a game next week between two teams Wilton McMahon might be the most interesting game to me.
I think that's definitely the most interesting because I think, unfortunately, whoever loses that game,
Is in
I
big
think they're
trouble.
out.
And it's
Yeah,
tough for that would be, Wilton's got a really tough schedule. Wilton's tough to play Shelton.
yeah.
That's their Thanksgiving game. That
Who
what
did
a gift
EJ
that
piss
is.
off? Yeah.
You know what? Wilton is one of the eight best teams in Double M, I think. But Double M's loaded this year.
Yep.
They're, Ludlow and Wilton are victims of being in really tough divisions right now. And again, McMahon, Trumbull are alive because they're in a little bit easier division, but you play who you play. So
Yeah.
that's
That's
just
it.
the way it works out. Uh, I guess the game that was sort of the main event that wasn't a bad game, wasn't a great game. I was there, and that was Darien Wilton, which to me, they're like, if you look at top teams, I would say like New Canaan Staples and Darien Wilton to me are like would be two games where the teams are almost it's almost a pick 'em game.
Hmm.
Uh I think most people I thought Wilton was gonna win by about a field goal or so.
Yeah.
And they jump out to a 24-3 lead, and Darien gets gets a late touchdown. And Wilton, after all the frustration, Wilton had the reaction after the game that I thought Stamford was going to have.
Hmm.
They were all pumped up. They were jumping around. They also were chanting 2007, and they had reason to be jumping around because they hadn't beaten Darien since 2007, 13 games. So after those frustration of 7-point losses to New Canaan and Staples, they finally got that signature win that they really needed.
Yeah, they pulled that one off. Wilton's quarterback Haggerty, yeah, that's his name.
Joey
He,
Haggerty.
yeah, he's very good. He's very good. He throws a good ball. He's a tough kid too. Wilton, they're going to be in every game just because of how big they are, and they are a physical football team. And to hold the two big receivers, I don't think they did anything.
Not. I mean, I think Kevin Roach had 40 yards. They I mean, a big part of the reason was the pass rush.
Yeah.
And Ben Rolap just had somebody was throwing on the run or had somebody on his face. You could count on one hand or so the number of times he could just sit back there and kind of comfortably scan the field.
Yeah, the game I saw in person was Wilton versus Norwalk, and I'm assuming Darien's offensive line is bigger than Norwalk. Norwalk will get there. They're all sophomores. They'll get there. But Wilton switched to a 3-man line, didn't blitz anybody, and was still getting pressure on our quarterback. So like if you can rush 3 guys and drop 8 in the coverage and still get pressure, you're winning the game. I don't care who you're playing, you're going to win. And Wilton, I would put them size wise up with anybody, in the league. They're very well coached. They're disciplined. Even their guys out wide are physical too. They might not be the biggest, but they play you. And they're tough. They're tough kids in Wilton. And EJ's doing a great job with them also.
Yeah, the play. I mean, first of all, and I mean everybody on the Wilton defense played well. The guy who sort of stood out to me because I saw number 7 all the time back there was Owen Theoridis, who had a really really big game. But there was a play, the play that made the score 24-3 was kind of symbolic of Wilton's effort. A short pass to Cole Stevenson, who had already scored 1 touchdown, and looked like it was going to be for a 15-yard gain or so. And he keeps going, and then he's I'll put it in Giants context. He's doing the Mark Bavaro,
Nice.
carrying guys into the end zone on his back for a 30-yard score.
All the younger listeners, go to YouTube right now and just type up Mark Bavar. They don't know who they are, Dave.
The Monday night 49er game.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they don't know who he is, but that I mean, I knew you'd get the reference. I mean, he just would not go down. And
Yeah.
you know what? Friday night, Wilton would not go down. They,
Yeah.
not the same Darien team we're accustomed to, but still a very solid Darien team. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Wilton beat a real good team, and they really, I didn't get a chance to talk to Andy Grant after, just because I knew my story. I was going to write a Wilton story, so I didn't
Mhm.
really need to. But he kept them gathered for a while.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably one maybe a little frustration is going to kick in a little bit. The thing with Darien that people need to talk about is that they very well could have won the game, but that week one forfeit win that could be really benefiting them right
That's going to
now.
get them into the state playoffs,
Yes,
and
yeah, because
I
North
kind of,
Haven's,
because they're going to, let's just say they're going to win their next two games. I keep saying I got to stop saying that Ward is a winless team, because Ward finally,
yeah, they got on
Ward got their first win. Happy for Duncan, and
then
but
Central.
they're gonna win their next two games, and then they'll play New Canaan, and they'll be in the top 8 at 7-3, and North Haven is a top 5 or top 10 team. And the thing is, Darien, to do well in states, Darien needs to play, maybe not in North Haven, because they just run such a difficult offense.
Yeah.
Darien needs to play another hard game or two,
Mhm.
just to work things out. We talk about the freshman quarterback at St. Joe's, and Darien's playing a sophomore right now, Ben Rolap, and Ben's going to be really, really good next year, and we're going to be talking about him as lead quarterback as a senior. But he's going through growing pains right now on a team that is, if they don't go 10-0, it's been an off year.
Yeah.
He's going through his growing pains, and as he works on developing, it affects the receivers that might be the best part of their offense.
Yeah, they got to do something to get those kids the ball, take some pressure off the quarterback. Um, you know, um, but again, you know, Darien's Darien. They're going to be, they're always going to be in it. It's just the question is what are they going to do? Like you said, I mean, you got to go in every game. You can't look ahead, but they got two. Their next two teams are combined 1-14, 1-13. So and then they go into New Canaan. So it's going to come down to that. And do they get in at 7-3? I think so. I
I
think
think they
so.
do too.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, I think they could use some, just for their own personal growth, some better competition, and not
Yeah.
teams that they may have running clocks in the
Yeah.
second half. It's not gonna help them be better for the state playoffs. But if I'm a coach of a top 4 team in that division, I don't really want to see Darien and
No.
come into my
Nope.
place the first
Nope.
game.
Listen, I never want to see those kids getting off the bus. I can tell you that. Go to the next exit.
Yeah, keep going. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yep.
yeah, they're getting, like I said, it's a team, it's a team that's kind of, it's a mix of old and younger players, and it's
Mhm.
just, and you have a coaching staff also that's in its first year.
Right.
So it's not your traditional Darien situation right
Yeah.
now. And bottom line is they're like a 6-7 win team right now, just in terms of personnel. But I'll tell you what, the fact that they're still winning with a first year quarterback, and that first year quarterback is getting all the kinks out now. He's just going to become that much better for his last 2 years.
Absolutely.
And he's got a good
Absolutely.
arm. He's got a really good arm. He's just
Yeah.
uh needs to go through what every new quarterback goes through.
Yeah. Absolutely. They will be okay. I can tell you that.
So yeah, it's not a lot else that really, it's just been a by the book kind of, uh
Yeah.
not it's the story to me is these middle of the road teams that are in contention, And man, I'd love to. They're going to be beating on each other still, so they're not all going to get in. But
Right.
it's
Right.
really cool to get as many of them as possible. I think Stanford probably has the best chance based on where they are right now, the schedule and the
Now,
division.
do they play at Danbury or is that game at home?
I don't remember.
I know they're at Ridgefield next, and then I think Danbury's home. But if because that's a big difference too. Danbury in November at Danbury,
Yeah,
it's not fun.
no.
They got the wind ripping through there. It's cold, you know.
And they're
But
still
yeah,
gonna they had a tough loss at Staples, but they're gonna be much more competitive against the upper middle class of the
yeah,
league.
yeah. Um, yeah, Stanford's in a good spot. You know, that if they do what they did this past week, they will be fine. But again, they got to do it. That's the big thing. You know, and Kev's coming, Ridgefield's coming off a win. He's going to have his boys ready, you know, so, you know, and
Let's
Stanford won't do it. Don't overlook anybody. You know, and you will be fine.
You look at Double L. Greenwich is gonna get in. Staples is gonna get in, and I think one of Stanford, McMahon, Trumbull will get in, possibly two. I think probably one of them. So
I think Greenwich. I so right now I have Greenwich is in right now. Maybe
yeah,
they have to go 1 and 2, but they're in.
yeah.
You know they got favorable matchup next week, so they're in. Staples, Staples, I think is in just because Double L is low. You know
Right,
they
and they're
have
getting and they're gonna probably get a couple of wins before Greenwich.
yeah, you know, but you know those are no look over games. You know those are tough games. Stanford, I think they have to go 2-1, gets them in 3-0 definite. Um, McMahon, I think McMahon has to run it out. I think McMahon has to win out, which they can do. They got two tough games. New Canaan, I have them in 2-1 definite, but I have them in right now. Darien, I have them. I think Darien has to run the table. You know,
You
two
don't
and one
think
would be.
you don't? I think a loss to New Canaan's still gonna get them in.
Oh man, it's I have them 3-0 in 2-1. I have with a question mark, so
Okay.
they still could, they still could. Ludlow 3-0 gets them in. I
Right,
think they.
That Wilton game's
Yeah,
gonna be huge, and then Wilton, man, they just every game is against the team.
yeah,
The
yeah.
games that we would have said are their easy games are,
Right,
McMahon's not an easy game,
right,
Ludlow's not an
exactly.
easy game, and then they got to play Shelton. Man,
That,
it would really be a shame if Wilton doesn't get in. I
yeah,
don't know what's gonna happen there.
right. I think if Wilton goes 2-1, and it doesn't matter which the 2-1
Right,
is, I think their
two and
bonus
one, I'll
points
get.
because McMahon, Ludlow, Shelton, those teams have a lot of wins. Darien has a lot of wins, so their bonus points, I think, will get them in. And then St. Joe's, I think, if they win out, they're in. And Dave, real quick, because I know the timer is going. Like, the state wants to add playoff divisions and all that stuff. No,
No,
if you want to add a playoff, go back to 4. And if you want to add one, if you are a co-op or if you are a tech school, you go in your own division. St. Joe's will beat most of the teams that are ahead of them right now in their class. Then you look at the teams that are up there, and it's not a knock on them, but it's like it's 8 towns combined into one. You know, it's just like play them. Like
yeah.
it's just so frustrating, like how they change everything. But
It's
anyway, St. Joe's, I think
the
if they win out there,
CIAC has a rule: everybody gets a trophy.
yeah, yeah,
Every sport, we could do a general sports, 500 record gets below 500 record now gets you
yeah,
in state playoffs. We are not, there should not, ideally for me, I like to reward excellence. There should be
yep,
three divisions, but four is certainly livable. Six is just, yeah, you were talking about more teams and everything, but I'd rather be talking about the very best of the
yeah.
best.
Dave, I would even be okay with 5, but that, like I said, that 5th division is tech schools and
Oh yeah,
co-ops.
yeah, I agree. That's fine.
Because and it's not knocking on anybody, but there have been schools that we have played in the past where we have beaten them handily. They go 8-2, they make the states and they lose 55-2, in the first round. And it's just like what are we doing here? Like we gotta be smarter, let them play, let them be rewarded, they get in, but they're in their own division.
All right. Well, why don't this could go on for a long,
Yeah.
long rant. Maybe let's save that. That'll be a good discussion maybe for
I'm in.
next week, because there's not going to be, next week. It looks like I'm probably going to be at McMahon again for Wilton McMahon. That probably is one of the biggest games, and it's kind of cool. I'm going to be at McMahon, Stamford, and Ludlowe all the second half of the season.
That's the
So
best.
we'll be back to talk about it next week. That's the Ruden Report podcast. I want to thank Sean again for joining me. I want to thank Cooper Boardman for the sound editing. We'll have a lot to talk about next week. Until then, take care.